Welcome to part 4 of the presentation. And now I want to talk about a type of program that is fortunately built in, at least in some version, to many of the devices we use on an everyday basis. And that really is something that has just happened over the past 10 or so years. This type of program is called speech to text software, or STT software. It's also known as voice to text or voice input. And the purpose of it is, or how it works, is the user speaks and then the device takes that in, processes it, and then puts it out as written, typed words. And so you could see the benefit of that is not having to even touch the device or the keyboard and still getting your work typed out. Now, there are a few important things I want to say about this type of program. One is, please do not get it confused with the type of program that's kind of the opposite of it, which is text to speech programming. And that is when you have a device that will read the print out loud. That's text to speech, and that's different from this. So don't get those confused. Another important thing to know is that there are a number of brand names for voice input software. The type that you may be most familiar with is Dragon. That's the brand name. And the reason I say that you might be most familiar with it is because it's built into many devices, including iPhones and iPads. And when it's built in, it's called Dragon Dictate. So that's the name of the app. But that's from the company Dragon. And there is also more expensive or pay version of that software that you may need to get if the free version doesn't work. And that one paid version, the type offered by that same company, is called Dragon Naturally Speaking. So keep in mind that if the free version doesn't work, there is a paid version, and you could try that with somebody if you need to beef it up some. The other thing that you may need to try with someone is a special headset or microphone. Sometimes it doesn't pick up what the person is trying to say if they're just saying it into a room. Now, the other thing I want you to be aware of about this type of software or program is that there's some challenges that come with it. Now, about 10 years ago, when this became a type of software that was available for paid use. So before it was free on pretty much any sort of tablet or smartphone, cost was a barrier. And that still could be the case if you're having to pay for extra equipment or the paid version for this for it to actually work. But I think the biggest potential barrier in using this is its actual effectiveness. Now, in my experience, people with disabilities do not have great success in many cases with this type of software. So please understand that it's not the end-all be-all solution to written output for people with disabilities. It doesn't always work. And in fact, I haven't found it to even work very often. I'm not saying it's not worth trying, because I think it is, but it's just not always going to be a direct route to solving a problem when somebody has a challenge in written output. And one reason is that it just doesn't pick up the speech of anyone that doesn't have very clear enunciation. Even if somebody has a heavy accent, or certainly any sort of speech impairment, it's not going to get many of their words correct. And when it does mistype something, there is an effort that is required to stop the voice input feature and then go in and correct it. So putting in punctuation, fixing the spacing or capitalization, or if it types something really out there that's off base, you have to erase that or delete it and then put in what you are meaning to say. So you might have noticed that because I try to use closed captioning sometimes in my presentations, and that feature will sometimes misquote or mistype what I'm saying so that you can really notice the errors in that. Another barrier that goes along with the effectiveness is the learning curve. I will tell you that the paid version has a training or sort of a tutorial that's not just a training for the user, it's actually a training for the software. So when you first start using this kind of software, it will instruct you to read passages off the screen so that it gets an idea of your pattern of speech. And if somebody can't read, or if they read it back and it still doesn't recognize what it's reading, it just may not work. Another barrier that many people don't consider until they're actually trying this out is that there are a lot of environments in which it's not really feasible for the user to be speaking out loud to produce that written input through the speech to text feature, because it disturbs other people, or other people are getting answers or information from the user who is just speaking out loud. So, picture, say, an eighth grade classroom, and there's a student in there who needs to use speech to text, or they're trying that out, but they're in there with 30 other students who are supposed to be working quietly and coming up with their own answers. And there's this one kid in there who's saying things out loud. And so it just doesn't work in some situations. Now, that same kid might be able to use it at home to do homework, or maybe there's a way they could use it in study hall, in an area if the room wasn't very crowded. But just in a lot of situations, it's not going to fix all the problems that somebody with written output challenges may have. Now, the last product, the category that I want to go over with you, is something called a smart pen. And this is one of the cooler pieces of assistive tech that I've gotten to work with. And I've known a number of college and graduate students who don't have disabilities that have found benefit in using this themselves. Now, the category, the type of equipment this is called a smart pen. But the brand name that you'll find it under most often is a LiveScribe or an Echo smart pen. And so what it does is it records what it hears, so whatever noise is going on while you're writing, and then also it's a regular pen too, so it lets you write on a page. Now, if you use this specific kind of paper that you can either download and print out, or you can purchase it either in sheets like notebook paper or in a bound notebook, you use their special kind of paper, which has very light matrices. So it looks sort of like graph paper on it. What happens is, and I think this is a funny term that the company uses, it marries or matches up the audio with what you are writing. So, in other words, if I am listening to a lecture and I don't really have the capability, or maybe I just don't feel like writing out an outline or a lot of the words and definitions that the lecturer is saying, what I might do is just write a few keywords, or I could even just write check marks or numbers, or draw a stick figure or a cloud on my paper. And then later, when I go back and listen to it, if I click the pen on whatever I wrote on the paper, it's going to start playing back the recording that was happening when I drew that. Now, you can upload it onto a computer or tablet, and then you can use your computer to click on whatever you wrote on the paper, and it will start the audio right there. So it makes note taking so much easier. These you can sometimes find, sometimes it's like a year-old version, but it still serves your purpose for roughly around $100. And they're very mainstream. You can get it at Best Buy and I'm sure Amazon, places like that. But it has other features like a dictionary built into it. It has translation apps, so you could have other languages right there. It's really cool and very fun to play around with. So it's something worth exploring if you, especially if you might work in a setting that you see a lot of clients with written output challenges. So it could even be older adults that have a lot of arthritis, or some older adults that have learning disabilities or cognitive challenges. If they are able to learn something new and learn a new form of technology like this through practice and demonstration with you, you may be able to get them to use it in a very functional way. So something to look into, the Smart Pen. I have here a list of references, and I want you to finish your note-taking guide and then go to the uploading, which should be right underneath this document on Blackboard, and upload your note-taking guide so that I know you have completed the unit. Thank you for your attention. I hope this has been informative to you, and I will see you again soon. Have a great day.